Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rider Rumblings video podcast. A bit of a bonus as we review everything that Rough Riders have done during free agency. So thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, that's about it, isn't it? We can talk about ourselves.
I'm here with our Hall of Fame curling writer, Murray McCormick. And Murray's been keeping tabs on what the Rough Riders have been doing. I don't think that's been an exhaustive exercise. But I mean, we're making fun of the process, but this has been largely by design. Jeremy O'Day said on Monday the Rough Riders don't expect to be major players in the free agent market, and sure enough, they haven't been. And that's by design, and I think it's generally to the credit of Jeremy O'Day and a
little bit to Chris Jones
and to Paul Jones as well.
Chris Jones and Paul Jones, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm so excited to talk about
James Franklin. I'm not even sure if Solomon Elimimian qualifies as a free agent because they got that done before the deadline. And then on Wednesday they re-signed Josiah St. John. That's our exhaustive rundown.
Thank you. Please tune in May.
Free agent moves.
Come back in May when we discuss the draft.
We might as well discuss them individually. James Franklin. I'm not sure they absolutely had to do that. I guess it never hurts to have more quarterbacks given the nature of this league, although teams aren't obligated to dress more than two anymore. But James Franklin, I guess that's a decent addition. I'm not convinced that Isaac Harker isn't a better option, or at least just as good of an option, though, Mur?
I disagree. I think Isaac Harker is a good option, but just as a third-string guy. I think James Franklin gives them that security blanket because who knows when your second-string quarterback's going to be your starter, and you get a guy there with experience. I don't think the Riders are hoping they don't get the James Franklin that was with Toronto. They get the James Franklin who backed up and did so well with Edmonton. So the longer I mull that, because I haven't much time to mull all the other deals.
There's plenty of time for rumination these days.
It's a good move. I think he was, of all the backup quarterbacks, I think he's the best. Jonathan Jennings, his numbers are done. I think I just saw the Eskimos signed Antonio Pipkin today. So I think they got a guy. And also when I talked to him, he understands his role. He's not coming in here, I'm going to be the starter, I'm going to be pushing him. No, I'm going to come here and see what I can do to help out Cody Fajardo. I'm going to do to help out the team. I'm going to make the room better. He's a good thrower. Backup's got to be able to pass the ball in practice to give the starter a bit of a break too. So, as I said, the longer I think about that, I think it was a good, subtle, quiet way of boosting the team and helping out and getting a personality that's going to fit in the locker room and not going to say, I want to be the starter, I deserve to be the starter. And I think if Cody happens to struggle, I don't think we're going to say, well, put in James Franklin. We're going to go through whatever Cody does. So, I think that's a lot of talk about a backup quarterback. But, man, remember back in the day, 16, how he was going to be the guy, eh?
He was going to be the guy.
Undoubtedly, he was going to come here and take over, and everybody wanted him in that relationship with Chris Jones. And then he got traded to Toronto. And based on what I've been hearing and talking to him, Toronto didn't go very well for him.
Mark Trestman didn't want him.
Didn't want him, yeah.
Derek Taylor had a really good interview with James Franklin, and they on CKRM Sports Cage, and they got into what happened in Toronto. And James Franklin was really honest about what a mess that was, and it just. Between Duron Carter and James Franklin, they just kept giving Jim Pop just kept giving Mark Trestman players that he didn't want to use.
Exactly.
No dysfunction there whatsoever.
A little bit of a side here. Can you think of a least personable coach to have in the XFL and doing all the things they're doing than Mark Trestman?
Yeah, he's
like a great coach, but he's just not that kind of sell yourself, kind of be out there in front of guys and be the personality.
I want to talk about the XFL later.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to address
that. No, not at all. We need material because it's such a sparse.
I want to talk about Solomon
topics.
I'd like to talk about Solomon Aluminium because Aluminium. He's a dyslexic's nightmare, and I can't even pronounce it. Solly. I think he might even be better than he was last year. He's going to
have a fresh start this year, or like a running start this year.
And he won't have the CFL negotiations taken up every other weekend. He's not going to be in Toronto getting in shape. He's going to be in shape to show up for training. He's going to be 100%. He's 34, but arguably an all-star by the end of the season. Sure, arguably could. I think he was one. Was he West Division?
No,
he wasn't. Who voted for him? Maybe I voted for him. Anyway, he was playing well by the end of the season. He's good in the locker room. The guys respect him. You don't think Cameron Judge got that good without some help from Solomon Aluminium?
We should just hold up a sign that has the spelling every time his name.
I can't control my tongue. There's too many M's and I's. Anyway, I think it's a good signing.
Your name's McCormick, and you can't get the Murray McCormick, and you can't get the M's right in Elamimian?
And all my M's.
Sorry.
Anyway, you're going to fill up stuff with jokes. But I think it's a great signing and re-signing. And I think another one that brings up that, Otha Foster. There's a name I can pronounce.
Let's declare him a free agent just because it gives us another topic. And that's a pretty good signing.
It is a pretty good, if he's the Otha
Take two.
If he's the Otha Foster of 16 and 18, he's been away for a year, but working and doing those kind of things. But he was great in 16.
Yeah.
And he's also another one of these personality guys that was good to talk to.
Just a really good, solid guy to have on a team.
And he got Solly's vote of approval saying good guy to get there. So instead of getting, like I was championing Patrick Levels, I think he would have been an outstanding Sam for this team. Instead, they get a guy who maybe a little bit over the minimum. 65 to 70, maybe that kind of money. I don't know how much money he's making, but that can play.
I think he'd get decent dough, but not as much as he would get if he was coming directly off the All-Star season in 2018.
So there's a good fill-in, and then if he doesn't work out, it's not that much. It's not that big of a gamble. They can do whatever they want there. And I'm going to roll here. Josiah St. John. Josiah. God, I'm having a wonderful time. Get me to curling.
We're gonna have a pool on how many times this happens.
I hate when people refer to draft picks as busts.
But he was a bust.
It wasn't his fault he was drafted first. He was not a first overall pick. He didn't have a lot of time. He had 15 games with the Sooners. He started 4 or something like that. He was a stretch, a huge stretch.
Maybe I'll pan out later rather than sooner. Ha, 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 ha.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
But there were also, I think, 3 guys from Laval who were picked in that after him that are all still in the league. I can't remember their names because I couldn't remember the names they were picked. Anyway.
I hope there's no M's in them.
Yeah. But I remember, he held out, and then I think Jones.
That's where he went wrong. You're right. It isn't his fault that he was picked first, but you need to, especially when you really haven't been an every down player in college. You need every rep you can get in training camp, and it's just like, and then they had to play him right away because they ended up having to deal with injuries right out of the gate in 2016.
And he ended up being a guard too. He wasn't a tackle.
And then I think by the end of the year he was a healthy scratch. In 2018 when they had to use him, he actually, and again in another emergency situation, he actually played pretty well.
Yeah, I'm thinking, was it 18? I'm trying to remember. Jones basically called him fat and out of shape.
Or was he talking to us?
Talking about it. I thought sorry. And he said he had to get bigger, had to get stronger and lose and get some weight. And I know he worked really hard in the off season, like really, really hard. Oops, the heck's that?
Siri is now a contributor.
And got himself in good shape. And then the day or two before training camp opened, he pulls his hamstring. And I went, oh. And then I watched him at training camp.
Yeah, because weren't they talking about what a beast he'd been during the off season?
He was a big stud. And then training camp, he lasts about a day or two. And he pulls his hamstring again. And I'm still watching, maybe in my mind, watching him go off the field. I'm thinking, God, the guy can't get a break.
Yeah.
He does everything he can. And he was out after that for quite a bit of time until he came back. But there's some insights. But I kind of felt sorry because he's a good
nice guy.
He's a nice guy. And it wasn't his fault he was picked first, as I said. And you kind of wanted to see him do well. And he kind of kicks around. And he's only 27. He can play tackle, so he gives him, I don't know if the Canadian options there, but whatever. And guard, kind of. He's not much of a guard, I don't think. But
when they had to use him there in 2018, he was fine.
Yeah, he filled in for Vladek.
In a really tough situation. It's like, okay, you're playing. So
maybe
there's that to hang on
But there's another thing, really I was going to use the word subtle, but it is a little subtle move. You bring in a Canadian guy, you pay him whatever you're going to pay him, not breaking the bank with some of the big names. And maybe he understands the atmosphere here, the culture here. Maybe the offense will be different, but it's not a big money signing. And you may get a guy out of this who's at 27. That's still pretty young for an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And give him a chance to. And as we always say, I love the second chance.
Good luck in the draft.
I love second chance stories, like legitimate second chance stories. And I think if he can step up to it and doesn't get hurt, and the Riders maybe go that way with a Canadian tackle, it gives them more options to go.
I don't think they will.
No, I think. Do you think maybe the days of Canadian offensive tackles are almost done? Because it seems to be, it doesn't work as well with the ratio and stuff. And plus the American tackles.
And the defensive ends are going to chew up a Canadian tackle.
And the American tackles.
Unless you've got a Gene Mikowski.
Yeah.
Your American defensive end by and large is going to
because they're like now what are they, 6'2", 240, well, 6'6" if you're Willie Jefferson. How can you go against Willie Jefferson after playing youth sports? It's nothing to say about youth sports, but the American guys come in ready to play better, and I think those are going to be more in our times. I think if you're 6'4" and 305, I think you're looking at the middle of the offensive line than tackles. But anyway, that's kind of just babbling because I think that's all we're going to do. If we make any more jokes. Do we have anybody left? We can see.
I think we can talk about the offensive line, though. I mean, they have to do this by necessity.
Yeah.
Because Dariusz Bladek and Philip Blake signed with Toronto, and I know the criticism has been out there. Why didn't they re-sign them? I'm not sure how you do, because you're going to have to pay them pretty much the equivalent of a starter's wage to bring them back, because they know there's places in this league they can start.
Yeah.
And the cap being what it is, I don't think you can bring back a sixth offensive lineman at six figures.
Right.
So what's Jeremy O'Day to do in that situation? I think once you lose Bladek and once you lose Blake, then you're really scrambling, and that probably leads to the return of Josiah St. John. They've got Braden Schramm too.
Maybe they can look for a global player to fill in. Sorry, I can't even say that without
that laughter was that laughter was not brought to you by Randy Ambrosie.
Yeah, sorry, Randy. I can't even say that out loud.
But honestly, though, he was there all year. Randy Brusea.
Yeah,
he was there all year. Didn't play it down. Now the Riders are in desperate need of reserve offensive linemen, and we're chuckling at the prospect of him playing. What does that tell you about 2.0?
Exactly. I used to think it was about making money, and I think that in the initial throes of this, it was about you've exhausted your finances in Canada. You got to find other ways to bring money to CFL, which is fine. I don't quite see that, and I don't see how they're making money out of this, but
these token roster spots,
and they're going to make two of them on the roster.
Like, honestly,
so Max Zimmerman, who played was how he would have to play, because you have to play special teams or something, because you can't put two on the roster and have them both sitting there enjoying the view. So
yeah, and how do you mandate it?
I don't know how they're going to do that.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, do you want two mannequins on the sidelines?
Yeah.
That just does not look good.
And one less quarterback.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it will likely shake down. Teams don't have to just dress two quarterbacks if they don't want to, but they're not obligated to dress three anymore.
I'm going to say something that's kind of weird here. I want to pass out a little bit of kudos to 3 Down Nation, because they did a heck of a job on top of things for the draft. And I know it's bad, and maybe it is, but, Justin Dunk's so well connected. And the CFL uses all of his stuff, and they don't pay him for it. So I think 3 Down Nations, I guess that's cool. What do you think? You don't care?
Yeah, I mean, Justin Dunk is so plugged into everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, you
have
to
tip
your hat to him.
Made for a fun free agency, just watching things happen. I know Glenn Suter brought up the fact.
It wasn't very interesting overall, though.
They should do a show.
I mean, Willie Jefferson signs with Winnipeg in advance, and that's pretty much the marquee free agent off the table. As of this, as we converse here, Darrell Walker still hasn't signed anywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say about they should do a show.
They should do a show. I think they could do it, but you can never guarantee this is going to happen either. Well, I guess you can pretty well guarantee there's going to be movement. I think the free agent window encourages a lot of movement early in the free agency period. And I think that free agency window accomplished what it's supposed to do. Solomon Aluminium found out what his market was. I think there were a couple offers, not offers, but he just sniffed out the market, and all these guys had an idea. And then they make a decision very quickly. And if you didn't make a decision very quickly, you end up like Darrell Walker, where all the money's gone. And where's he going to end up? Is he going to go, play for, he was a $200,000 guy, I think, somewhere in that area?
Pardon me?
He was a $200,000 guy?
He was over $200,000.
It's just another aside here. Larry Dean was a $200,000 linebacker with Edmonton last year and signs for $110 with Hamilton. That's strange. Excuse me.
Micah Johnson takes a...
That's classy.
Great moments in podcasting history. Mark Melnichuk, can we edit that out?
Oh, man.
I now have influenza. Thank you so much for that. Micah Johnson takes a pretty significant pay cut. He's still making good money, but
he's not going to have holding any telethons for him.
No, but
he's living in Vancouver now. A little more expensive than Regina, I bet.
Yeah. Okay, what's the deal there?
Okay, I mean, it's a big city on the ocean. We live in the middle of the prairies. Don't you understand?
And they've never heard of a block heater.
Yes.
Whatever. What? I mean, he did some interviews and said the Riders never even offered him a contract. What do you read into that?
I think they're reading into that. They're happy with what they've got. And I think they're thinking you have to, somewhere in the salary cap world, you've got to make decisions that are going to fit into the cap. And the 4 guys they have, 4 or 5 or 6 of them, fit into the cap relatively easy, and you take a chance. That's what I read into that.
So who's do they use Justin Falk? They're pretty high. Is Justin Falk?
Jeremy, isn't it?
Jeremy Falk? Time for some Googling.
Anyway, I think maybe go 2 Canadians. Mac Henry's not very flashy, but he had a solid year. I think Zach Evans has to regain the form he had. I don't think he played. I don't know how badly hurt he was down the season, but I think he knows he's got to play a little bit better.
Jeremy Falk.
There. That's nice. One for me. Charbil DeBuyer. He's a good player, good run stuffer. So I wasn't surprised. I guess I was a little surprised they didn't offer Mike, but
maybe they just knew whatever they offer him isn't going to be
You were down on him. You didn't think you got them.
No, they didn't get their money's worth there. You're paying $250,000 for that. You better get an absolute.
But I think
destroyer.
But how do you pay? You pay that kind of money, and you expect that kind of stuff. But how many years can defensive tackles get 14 sacks? And I don't think that.
Well, he was getting much higher sack totals every year.
I know.
And then the bottom fell out, and he gets 4 and none before Labor Day.
But I think it's a different style of defense too, and I think maybe that's what he said was kind of things that.
But if he performed so well, why were they so disinterested in bringing him back?
Because he would have cost $200,000 probably, and as I've said a little earlier, salary cap world, you've got to make some cuts. Like where's their money spent this year? Cody Fajardo, Shaq Evans, and Cameron Judge.
Cameron Judge got a nice raise,
and I think Solly got a pretty good money out of this deal too. And again,
according to Justin Dunk, it was just a little bit more than he made last year.
Mm-hmm. So the money is spent relatively. Plus, as you know, the salaries went up $10,000.
Yeah,
and the salary cap went up 50. I don't have that math doesn't work to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's that middle ground of players who are if you don't sign right away or before free agency, if you wait hoping to incite a bidding war, I think you've just pretty much weighted yourself into considering the XFL as an option.
Yeah, I want to say too that I'm glad Willie Jefferson went back to Winnipeg. I think if he had gone anywhere else. And it's about money. I'm not saying it's not about money, but it's just good for continuity. Like Willie Jefferson's, maybe we should give a good guy count in on our podcast. But he is a good guy. He understands. He sells himself. He's kind of like a Cody Fajardo in a little different role as a defensive end. But he liked Winnipeg. He did something. He made a difference there. And I'm glad to see a guy can show. Probably got a little less money, but a little loyalty to go back to play for them. And he makes Winnipeg pretty darn good, I think.
So what about the Riders now? Like, what do they need to reinforce now that the smoke seems to have cleared?
They don't have a returner in my mind.
They've got to find a returner.
I'm not saying Kyran Moore and Lucius Purifoy and whoever else are going to trot out there. Maybe there's someone on the neg list, or maybe there's someone on the roster that can do that. You just need a guy like Thigpen when he was at his best.
Yeah.
Changes the field position,
like a dedicated returner.
Yes,
like someone who's that's his job.
Like you don't think Frankie Williams?
There's a global returner they can find.
Yeah, you have to ask for global returns. A return on your global player. Sorry, Frankie Williams, I thought was a guy with Hamilton who was perfect. He played cornerback, an outstanding returner, special teams player of the year. But Hamilton obviously realized what they had, and they signed him.
And the Riders' defensive backfield was locked down,
so they need a returner.
Maybe that's where Paul Jones comes in.
Yeah, or really, you think you can find a game-breaking returner? Can't you? Can't there a million of them out there?
Not on the Denver Bronco. Oh no, actually they had Deontay Spencer last year.
That's true. And where did he come from?
But before that, it was just a procession of bad returners.
Yeah.
So even the NFL was struggling to find them. So, River Craycraft. So once it trickles down to the CFL, maybe there's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, but that's and I'm kind of like I think they need an American defensive tackle, but there's nobody really out there they want to spend.
Maybe there's Jeremy Falk now that I've mastered his name.
Yes, I don't think there's anybody out there you want to spend your money on.
No, and again, maybe that's a Paul Jones issue.
Yeah, so
find somebody.
Yeah,
and that's what he's very adept at. That's his stock in trade, and that's why he's Despite the fact that nobody ever hears him talk, he's one of the best to ever do this.
Do they need another big-time receiver? Should they spend money on Darrell Walker? Or should they bring back?
Where would you even play Darrell Walker? He's a wideout. You got Shaq Evans, and the other wide receiver lines up somewhere near Grant Cooley.
Yeah, I know.
So, you find room for Darrell Walker if you can, but if you're looking at the slot options, you've got Jordan Williams-Lambert coming back, and you would think they would use him better. Kyran Moore, and obviously it appears that Kenny Stafford's next up, and he's a pretty reputable receiver. Yeah. So, and as far as the wide side wideout, that's Justin McInnis or somebody.
Justin McInnis or Braden Linius, or let's say Mitchell Picton. Like, make that a Canadian position. Which tradition? Let's say it's Rob Bagg turned that into a pretty. It's always important. Rob Bagg made that a very significant position during his time here.
Yeah,
and he started out as a wide guy, but a lot of times he finished as a slot. So don't ever forget about Rob Bagg. I was asked today, what about Naaman Roosevelt? And I said, I never say never, because you never know. But I'd be surprised if he was back with the Riders. And I think he's probably mulling over offers now. And where do you play him again? Same thing. Is he going to come back and be the sixth or seventh receiver? He would probably.
He's still just as good an option as Kenny Stafford, if not better. It just depends on what the salary expectations would be. Yeah. Kenny Stafford probably gives him a little more speed at this stage. Yeah. Naaman Roosevelt would give them more reliability.
But maybe Stafford was a pretty good receiver in Edmonton before he got traded. I think he was on pace for a pretty good season. I like to see what he can do. He looks good in practice. Can we get another good guy reference? Another good guy in the locker room, understands his role, just like Manny Arsenault wanted to be a starter, expected to be a starter, but also understood he could contribute doing other things.
Never griped. What a pro.
I remember in Montreal, he had that game there, and I mentioned to him, now that JWL is here, what's going to happen here? And he said, man, that's not the time to be talking about that. We've got to be working on the team and stuff, and that big play thing. And I hope he lands somewhere. I think he can still contribute. I don't think the Riders need him as much. Like, the receiving core is pretty good. And I think if people look at it from depth, you have Braden Linius, and you have McInnis, and you have Mitchell Picton, and maybe back Corey Watson.
And he's now a coach in university.
Yeah, Jake Hardy maybe.
Jake Hardy's coaching now too, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's still on the list, so I don't think.
So is Jeremy Zver.
Yeah, but he retired. He's like, I see him at Cougar games, so I don't think he's coming back. And he's not even on the team's roster.
Yeah,
because I went looking for that because I was trying to figure out all the numbers of free agents. So it was but what do they do now? Do you think? I think
you let Paul Jones do his job and you prepare for the draft.
Yeah, the global draft or the. Who do you think? Who's your pick in the global draft?
Oh
Rob?
My goodness. Honestly,
please don't.
That's a podcast in itself. Just
the top 10 global picks.
Oh my goodness, unbelievable! Did you watch the XFL last weekend?
I did watch the XFL.
I like it.
I like the clock. I think it moves fast. I like the kicking stuff is gimmicky, but seems to make it safer and stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL took that kickoff rule and just outright stole it.
And I like the graduated points after touchdowns. I think that's going to change games.
17 points is no longer a three possession game.
Yeah, I like. Somebody
should tell Mark Trestman that.
I kind of like the sideline interviews. I
love you just threw an interception.
Yes.
What went wrong there? What were you seeing? Or Mark Trestman makes a really strange call, like going for a field goal to when they're losing 17-0, and the sideline reporter is asking him right away, "Why'd you do that?" I love that.
Yeah, that was cool. I think that was.
There's only certain reporters that can pull that off. Like if the CFL were to try that, Sarah Arleski asks the best questions of anybody ever. She could do that and ask great even-handed questions and get good answers. If you get one of these babbling announcers in the States that has 48 seconds of preamble before you ask the question, then it could be an issue. But if you get somebody like Sarah doing that in the CFL, and when you consider that the CFL their TSN is basically the CFL's banker, I would think TSN would wield enough influence to try and be able to get that kind of access.
And I like the replay guy talking and what he's seeing and stuff. Yeah. That was cool. It took you behind. And I'll be honest, it's not gimmicky. I remember the other one, He Hate Me, and all that crazy stuff, the guys running from the ball and stuff. And it wasn't football. It was football, but it was just too gimmicky. It wasn't. People don't want to watch it. They want to see. And I don't know any of the players. Like they're the quarterback. I'm trying to think from the Ohio State Buckeyes. Cardell Jones. And they kept trying to sell him as a guy we've all heard about. And he played, 15 games in college, if he played that many?
Well, they got one of your old Steelers there. Landry Jones is supposed to make his XFL debut this weekend.
Funny little story. He hate me, for people who don't know, back in the XFL's early days, they're allowed to put nicknames on the back of their sweaters. And Rod Smart put he hate me on the back of his sweater. Rod Smart signed with the Eskimos. And I got to do a story on Rod Smart. And I've been hunting for it because I can't find it.
Did he hate you?
He hate me. But I still remember coming back and one of the discs said, what was he hate me like? What was he hate me like? And he was real. I still remember he was a good guy. It was kind of cool. But I remember doing a story on Rod Smart, and he kicked around a little bit. But he hate me. It was so funny, just that kind of thing. But there's none of that gimmicky now. And I kind of like their uniforms.
Yeah.
The uniforms are
except those. What's the green team again? Those are really
the Rough Riders.
Gross. Oh. They're really lime green.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
Which
will you watch it this weekend then?
Yeah, I will.
I'm going to be watching curling. I guess we can probably start that a little earlier. But the Scotty tournament's hearts on. It's in Moose Jaw. What a field! And I think some team from Manitoba might be favored because it seems to be all the Manitoba teams are in there.
Just watch Jennifer Jones will win the wild card game and then just basically leave everybody else.
She's so good, but I think she's playing Tracy Fleury tomorrow night, and it's free, by the way, to go and watch, or donation, which is kind of. I was in Penticton. I know it's not football. For the first year, they introduced this format, and we didn't have a clue what was going on. It was just this wild card game, and then they play this first round where everyone plays and they get to a championship round. You're going, what a stupid thing to do. And once you went through, it kind of made sense. You got to where you should be by Thursday, where the good teams are all playing each other with games that matter, but. Curling is trying to be more inclusive, getting all the provinces involved in territories, and they have to do something to the format to get them to do that. And finally, kudos to curling, same prize money for both men and women, and long overdue. I think the women, we understand the women don't get as many fans, and the ratings aren't as powerful as the men's, and they don't generate it, but they should be playing for the same money, and I think it's been long overdue, and I think it's going to make a difference. Well, last year, Robin Silvernagle placed third and got $26,000. This year, the third place team gets $45,000. That's a size. I can't remember the first and second places, but I think that's pretty good. And I'm going to throw this at you.
We lost to throw things at me for a while.
We lost a journalism giant, I think,
Blatchford.
And you worked with her at the Olympics, or were part of the team.
We passed each other once at tennis.
Did you? Okay, but
her and Rosie DiMano were.
I was reading all the.
Right by them. That's Christy. That's Christy Blatchford.
I'm reading all the tributes. I've never met her. I've read her stuff. I'm not a big crime newspaper. I don't read that stuff. Didn't interest me that.
She was great.
Yeah.
She was absolute. And she pushed the envelope as far as you can push it with covering a trial, to the point where you always wonder, is that contempt? But she always knew where that line was drawn. Yeah. She was feisty. She was absolutely unstoppable. She had amazing sources. She could write absolutely amazingly. She could write. There could be like a 60-word paragraph with 5 commas in it, and it would be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And if I try that, I'm being escorted out of the building.
And she's writing on deadlines too.
And she's writing on deadlines about and she wrote. She was Canada's first female sports columnist in the 1970s. Okay. She loved Olympic sports.
Yeah.
And she loved dogs. And you can't. I've always maintained the best way to judge a person is by how much they love dogs. We're really off on a tangent here, but do you know anybody who really loves dogs who's a bad person? No. It's the best way to recognize.
So people who love what happens? I love cats. What does that make me?
You're a second caste individual. So
yeah, I'm just catty.
Christy Blatchford is an absolute original.
The tributes I've been reading, and I read a lot of them because I'm fascinated by this woman who looked just kind of mean a little bit and stuff when you kept seeing it. But boy, talk about how she'd sit right in the front row underneath cross-legged, and she was a marathon runner.
Mountain climber.
Was she a smoker? Nope. So lung cancer claimed her quite young.
But if you were a victim, she was your best friend. Yeah. If you were a smug, complacent authority figure, she's your worst enemy. Comfort the afflicted, afflict the comfortable. That's one of the first things I ever heard in journalism school, and that was pretty much the essence of Christy Blatchford's approach.
Yeah, she was amazing, and you think of all the things she does. Reading some of those tributes, she would cry. She was cheering when Canada scored a goal in soccer at Olympics. Everyone's looking at her going, and she gave a guy, I think it was called Cathal Kelly from the Globe and Mail, and she gave him the dirtiest look, and the guy says, "You've been told." That she, I mean, there's no cheering in the press box. We're supposed, but she was,
except when it's time for the buffet at halftime.
Yeah, but she was one of those. She cried and she turned very. She had a pretty good. She could swear a little bit too. She wasn't afraid to. What I understand.
Everything that was, she wrote what she thought.
Yeah.
And there's a great story about when she started out and somebody changed her copy without telling her, so she phoned a different newspaper in town, and very soon, shortly thereafter, was employed by them.
Yeah, she worked for all the big papers: the Globe, the Star, the Sun.
She ran the Spectrum in Toronto, and just an absolute. I wish I'd had a chance to sit down and chat with her when we were in Beijing. That would have been really cool.
And that's what I understood. Not saying it, she was very open to talking to reporters and helping them. She was, I read a number of court reporters that she said she'd show them around, introduce them to everybody, and just kind of things that other papers. Or nowadays, I don't know if that might probably happen, but we just don't seem to have that person.
And she had a real knack for using the expense account.
Well, picking up dinners for many. I don't know if she had a Twitter account.
Only you were as adept as that.
I don't think she had a Twitter account. I don't know if I ever saw anything from Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, but
it was a very sad day. Christy Blatchford, 68 years old. And
well, maybe they'll. I don't know if we won't be able to replace her, but it was.
On that somber note,
we're having a happier note now. The riders are a little quieter. I think now it's going to be the player for the global drafts and stuff, and then Craig Dickinson I think is going to go back to Montana and do some snowboarding and working on his staff and stuff. He hasn't named the defensive line coach yet. Maybe Chris Jones gets a job here.
He's fine in Cleveland by the sound
far. Yeah, but so then a little quiet time for football, and then
you never know though. Things can change unexpectedly very quickly in the world of
Don't we know that, eh?
And if so, we'll have a podcast follow up where we don't talk about curling. So,
I love curling.
I know. Anyway,
any jokes? Any more cheap shots at me?
No.
Want me to try to pronounce Solly's last name again, or are we just going to let me?
I'll try to remember his Falk's first name. We need some remedial podcasting here. For Murray McCormick, we'll do this again next time that there's some major news rider-wise. We're doing that. Taking that approach throughout the off season, and then once the season gets here, we'll be boring you throughout on a weekly basis. So for Murray McCormick, I'm Rob Vanstone. Thanks for tuning into our curling podcast, and we'll do this again soon. I would
3 signings, and how long did we talk? We're awesome.
Not bad. Milking it. Take care and have a good one.